Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 380 of CryptoBiography, and it's part 3 of Repercussions, and here we go. But after her little side hustle, it was time to return to business. She delved more into her stolen data and also started to put more feelers out on Franklin Adams. This was, as always, a risk, but she started using her extra protections. One of these was her country house. It wasn't much, but it was well designed. It required her to drive out of the city, but it really didn't take too long when it was nighttime, as it often was when she worked. The house was perfectly serviceable, and she could in fact live there quite comfortably. But more importantly, it had an attached garage, and then a secret walking tunnel to the back of the lot, where an old barn, carefully restored in such a way that it still looked rather dilapidated, held 3 more vehicles. The barn was mostly surrounded by trees, and so she could go into the house, take the tunnel, and drive away, and if someone had been watching her, they would be none the wiser. The house did have a remarkable security system, one that had multiple backups and several ways to alert her if something strange was happening on her property. So she started driving there from her appointments with her contacts. She never wasn't watching for tails, but a good team could swap cars or even use helicopters or other methods to avoid detection. This way, when she went home, she had already given any possible followers the slip. It took extra time watching her country house's security system after she had gone to her beach home, but it was worth it. One night, having just come back from a feeler meeting with someone who might know something about Franklin Adams, the alarm went off at her country house. She was immediately on her system to see what was happening. She could alert the police. There was nothing obviously illegal about anything at the house, but she wanted to see who it was, how large a team they were, and how professional they seemed to her. She also wanted to keep the police out, despite knowing her country home was basically clean. True, she never put anything there that would be valuable to a homicide detective, but if they did anything more than the most cursory check of her house, they would notice how unusually strong the security was, and that could lead to someone getting ideas about her. So she looked at the feeds and, seeing teamwork and communication, decided it was time to act. She got into her tactical outfit and grabbed her weapon bag. She also grabbed her tech bag. She had an electric vehicle that had its noisemaker on a switch. It could run almost silently at lower speeds. Yet another aspect of the choices she made when she purchased the house was that though it was a fair distance away, it was nearly a straight shot from her beach home, and she could get there remarkably quickly. She got in her EV and thought along the way. She didn't want to kill anyone on her property. It would bring unwanted attention, certainly by whoever was behind the people already on her property, but also potentially from the police. No, she would defend herself if needed, but she wanted to find out who this was. The likeliest explanation was that some of her feelers had led to her being made by someone, at least a bit. They were now tracking her down. She approached the road where she would take one more turn and then be along her property. She could be seen, so she pulled over into a small driveway of a neighbor she knew for a fact didn't currently live there, and therefore wouldn't be a problem. She pulled up far enough that some bushes obscured her car from the road. Then she turned the vehicle off, took several weapons from her gun bag, and decided which items to grab from her tech bag. She suspected that the team did not know who owned the house. The shell company she'd bought it from would be difficult to trace to her, though it could be done in time. She took off through the trees, keeping to the low lines. She didn't want to be spotted from afar before she was ready. The team that she had heard seemed to have a few people outside, presumably guarding the team that was going in, but also, if they were smart, watching for someone like her approach from behind. So she found the lookouts. Fortunately, though they were on high alert, they were not using infrared detectors or anything else that would make it easier for her to be caught. There was a van, and once she knew the placement of the lookouts, she found a way to make her way to it. Inside were at least 2 voices talking over their comms. She took mental note of the license plate. She would have it run later. She took out a small device and pressed a button. She crawled up to the van and placed the device up inside the wheel well. Then she crawled away, slowly, always on the lookout. The voices never changed or raised their tone, which she took as a good sign. Her home and the several vehicles parked there were now compromised. She would not be able to use them safely, certainly not while this hunt of hers was ongoing, but possibly forever. She tried not to feel the twinge of pain at that. She enjoyed her country home. She would undoubtedly get another one, but that didn't make her feel any better in the moment. She slowly made her way to the point where the lookouts would no longer be able to catch her, and then she got up and made her way back to the car. The device was a fairly clever one. It would track the van for her, giving her the location every minute or so. A program she had would then map the van's movement. It should tell her who or what company owned it, unless they were very clever about where they put their surveillance van. After 3 days, when movement was detected by the device for over 2 minutes, a capsule would break inside it. It would ruin the electronics and also the magnet, causing the box to fall off the van on the road. If the device was pulled off the wheel well by someone looking for such a device, that too would break the capsule and ruin the electronics, making it impossible to determine exactly who was using the device or what had been transmitted. Still, she hoped it fell off on its own rather than being pulled off. If it was pulled off, they would still know they'd been made, and depending on how often they checked their vehicles, they may well know it was her doing it at her country home. Either way, she gave a final, silent goodbye to her country home, got in the car, and drove quietly away, only turning on the lights when she was a few hundred feet down the road. She made extra sure she was not followed back to her beach home. It took what could be a 25-minute jaunt over 3 hours, but when she went to sleep, she was sure no one was going to creep into her bedroom. The automated tail on the van helped. It gave 3 days of data, then fell off. She even went and picked it up off the pavement, just to make sure it was not discovered. The location of the box was less than 3 blocks from where the van seemed to be homed. It was a front business that hid a security company. Whether they were working for the people who were after her, or were the people themselves, she didn't know. But now she knew whom to target. And that's the end of the episode for this week. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm certainly enjoying writing it. And yeah, a sort of a neo-noir sort of deal going on here. And it's a little unlike pretty much anything else I've written, but I'm certainly having a lot of fun doing it. You notice we haven't actually gotten a name for our main character yet on any of the stories she's been in, because this is now the 3rd story in the series. The other 2 being very short, one episode shots, but that's on purpose. We will probably at some point learn her name, or at least one of her names, because she's the sort who undoubtedly has multiple names. But, that's going to have to come up sort of in the natural course of the story. So anyway, thank you for listening, and if you have any comments or questions about this episode or previous episodes, CryptoBiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or X or Mastodon. And thanks for listening. Words and Music copyright 2024, Brandon Starr, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.